Hey guys, how's it going? So, Sunday, October 13th until Saturday, October 19th is OCD Awareness Week. I've been making videos all week and I have a couple more planned, but check out the description if you want more information. But since I usually do videos on Wednesday anyways, I decided to make this one booktube related. So this video is going to be a reading vlog. I'm a little bit nervous about this one, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm going to be reading Kissing Doorknobs by Terry Spencer Hesser. This one I've mentioned in my OCD book recommendations video, but this was the first book that I remember that had like on the page OCD, from what I remember anyways. And the main character in this book has very, very similar OCD than I do. So I am, with my OCD, finally in a good enough place that I can reread this. I am still a little bit nervous, but I thought that this would be the perfect time to face my fears and look back on this book. So that's what today's video is going to be, and I figured I might as well make a reading vlog out of it. I'm gonna avoid spoilers, but let's just get into it. It's not a long book at all. It's, I think, about 150 pages. But yeah, let's go. Okay, so I've only read one chapter so far. I forgot how immediately you're thrown into her world and into her mind. So she starts off by talking about how she hears the rhyme, "Step on a crack, break your mother's back." And just the way that it's written is in that perfectly repetitive way that just, I don't know, the author does a very good job. And she's talking about how like embarrassed she is because she knows that it doesn't make sense that she's like doing certain things, and I like this a lot. I forgot how much I loved it. Okay, I'm 4 chapters in. One thing I really like is the variety in her OCD. It's not just the same type of OCD over and over again, but she has like a lot of different types of OCD that fall into a lot of the different categories. But I like that it explains why she thinks the way she does. Like, not in a sense of like a medical sense, but she'll explain the reasoning of why the habits got stuck in her head in the first place. And just like seeing her side of it, because it's written in first person. I forgot how much I liked this book. Okay, so I'm just over halfway through. This book is very, very good, but it's so good that I'm feeling kind of anxious reading it. So it just does a very good job at being in her head while she's having her anxiety attacks and panicking, and that's good, but it's a little bit hard to read. One thing that I completely forgot was in this is one of her best friends has an eating disorder. It's never like the main focus, but it's brought up quite a few times. Like early on in the book, she's talking about like how often she goes on diets, and then at this point in the book, she's full on anorexic. And she's always a very background side character, but just trigger warning, there's mentions of that in here too. Some things that I'm remembering that this book does well and not so well is the reactions of the people around her. So like her friends just kind of like accept it at first, and then they start being confused, and then they're trying to help her and they don't know how to help her. And I think that comes across really well. At first, the reaction of her mother, because that's another thing that I think this book does really well that's kind of hard-hitting, is that her family doesn't know what to think about her. Basically, her mom is afraid of her being crazy and just doesn't know how to control herself. She starts drinking and stuff like that. So her mom starts getting like really aggressive towards her every time she performs one of her rituals, and then something big happens. And this really sums it up. "That moment was the saddest, lowest one of my life, and my mother's. She was determined to fight for my sanity, even if she killed me, and I was as helpless against her rage as I was against the tyrants in my head. I think that it's hard not to see her mother as the villain because she's, like, behaving pretty mean to her, but I think that really sums it up. Like, sometimes people aren't going to react the right way, and I think that really, like, not quite justifies, but explains her mother's actions. I will say, though, that the thing in this that does really bother me is it's something that I see all the time in books and other media. So at this point in the story, she has seen 2 different therapists, and they haven't done anything. They've both been really, like, cartoonishly dumb, and I hate that because therapy is amazing, and not every therapist is going to be perfect, like, obviously. But therapy is literally life-saving, and I don't think that we should make fun of therapists and kind of just push the assumption that, you know, they're just going to sit there and write down what you say after they ask a really dumb question and how they're not going to understand you and stuff. Because, like, I've just known so many people in my life that have resisted going to therapy because they don't trust therapists. And going to therapy is hard enough as it is, but when you're, like, mentally belittling the therapists and just not having any faith in them, it's just going to make it so much worse. So, side note, complete tangent there, but I don't know, books and movies and stuff that portray therapists as just the bumbling idiots, I don't like that. I do agree, though, the first therapist she sees is when she's like 11 years old, and they diagnose her with ADD and self-esteem issues, which, to be fair, young kids, because first of all, at their age, they can't articulate in a way that we always understand how they're thinking and how they're feeling, so it is a little bit harder to diagnose them, and also because it usually is just, you know, part of growing up, like little quirks and weirdness and stuff. Like, same thing with, like, how teenagers are usually moody, so sometimes their depression goes unnoticed, things like that. So I kind of understand it, just the way that it's portrayed bothers me. So I just finished it. I got really emotional at a lot of times. I'm feeling a lot better than I expected to, though. Like, I'm not feeling as anxious. I don't want to go into any details because it's kind of spoilery, but one other thing that I kind of forgot that this book does such a good job with is touching on relapse. Because I find books with mental illness don't talk about relapses often enough. You know, either the characters are getting better or the characters got better. And when that's all you're exposed to, when you have your own relapse, which you're going to relapse with mental illnesses, like, for the most part, they don't go away, and it's going to come back at some point. So being able to see other characters going through a relapse and then working on it again, like, a lot of times relapse feels like a failure, whether that's with mental illness or whatever you're going through. And it's hard not to be hard on yourself, if that makes sense. So I really like that this book touched on it. This is either an old middle grade or a very young adult. The main character, she starts off when she's 11 and she finishes when she's like 16. So that's the age range of the main character. And I just think that it touches on so many important topics. I think that if somebody had zero interest in learning about OCD and was like didn't want to read it for that, if they've never known anybody with OCD, if they just didn't, I don't want to say if they didn't care about people with OCD, but you know what I mean, like if that wasn't the reason why they were reading this book. As a book, like purely on plot, character, etc., it's okay, but if you have OCD or if you know somebody that has OCD, I highly recommend this book, especially if you know anybody in your life that's been recently diagnosed with OCD or any young people that have OCD. This book, I highly, highly recommend. You're very much in the mind of the character as she's dealing with all of her anxiety, and that can be kind of triggering, but they're very short scenes, and not to spoil it, but it's kind of obvious with a book like this, she does start to get help and start to improve throughout the book. So I think that even though it can be a little bit hard to read at times, it's so important. Which, I mean, it's the same as with getting better from a mental illness. Like, it's hard, but it's worth it. And I'm really glad that I reread this book. There were so many little things in it that I didn't remember, and so many things that now that I know more about my own OCD, and now that I just know more in general, I can just relate to and understand so much more than the first time I read this. Like, the first time I read it, I was still completely in denial about everything, and I didn't understand enough of what OCD was to be able to realize that, even though this book played a huge part in me learning about what OCD really was. But when I read it the first time, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, like I do a lot of these things, or I can understand that train of thought, or things like that. But now I'm picking up all the little nuances of it, and I am just so glad that I reread this book. This was such a great choice, and like I said, I really recommend this book. I would like to mention trigger warnings. Like I said, obviously there's mentions of OCD and overall anxiety. There's mentions of anorexia, and they question it, but it's not quite as resolved as I feel like it could be. There is abuse. Her family reacts very badly to her OCD, and I think that if you had a bad experience with people accepting your OCD, some of the scenes could be a little bit challenging. There's brief mentions of teen pregnancy, just little things like that. None of it's focused on too heavily aside from the OCD, but if you're just going to be very easily triggered by any of those things, just be aware that they are mentioned throughout this book. So that is all I have today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button to let me know, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with my regular videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And for all of this week, for OCD Awareness Week, I'm going to be posting other OCD related videos. I'm thinking that my last video of the week, I kind of want to do like a Q&A kind of thing. So if you have any OCD related questions, leave them down below or message me on Twitter. Even if I don't get enough questions for a Q&A, I'm still going to answer your question. But if there's anything specific that you want to know, then definitely let me know. So I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!